If you measure it, the distance between the first row seats is definitely different. It's about 30. So when you're sitting in the first row, the car where the driver and passenger feel a bit closer together is the Sorento 6-seater with captain's chairs. Compared to that, the Filante is at least 2 centimeters wider. So, when you actually sit in it, among mid-size cars, the one that supports your thighs the most comfortably in the second row is the coupe. Because of the design, the interior height is definitely lower. Right now, the Filante has an interior height of about 67 to 68. Hello, this is Yopmark Group. Today I'm here at the most. With the Sorento arriving at the perfect time, I think many will be curious, so I'll compare the two vehicles. First of all, its value has already been proven to be the highest in the country. The Sorento has been the representative mid-size SUV for a very long time. Its rugged design reminds you of a Cadillac, and it always looks cool. When it comes to design, the Sorento is truly a car you can't criticize. And what's really important to note is that the Sorento is a facelift model. Even so, it's a vehicle that is overwhelmingly beating the new Santa Fe. And this time, a completely new vehicle has been released. It's the Filante, Renault's mid to large flagship SUV. Normally, no matter what car is parked next to the Sorento, it never loses out in terms of design, but this time it's a bit different. Look, this is what the Filante's front looks like. It really shows an overwhelming presence, and I think the biggest difference is this. The Sorento has an L-shaped design with the DRL integrated like this. While the Sorento puts more emphasis on the upper part, the Filante has a DRL design that's really hard to see on other vehicles. When the DRL is activated, it works here and on the lower part as well, and there's an unexpected difference. Look at this. When you look at it with the naked eye right now, compared to the Sorento, it definitely looks a bit lower, especially when you look at it from the front. It still looks similar though. If you move to the side profile of the Sorento slopes gently from the first row, while this one is similar up to the first row, but as you move toward the second row, the design drops dynamically like a coupe. If you compare from the back, you can definitely see that the Sorento is a bit taller. Take a look at the roof area together. Anyone can clearly tell that the Filante is the lower vehicle. If you step back, you can see the line dropping from the roof, the middle character line, and the line continuing from the bottom. The vehicle that gives you the feeling of a strong wedge-like grip around the tail lamp area is the Filante. Now, let's compare the rear designs. The rear of the Sorento clearly looks like an SUV, that's how I would describe it. One difference is that the Sorento has a hidden wiper, so the wiper is concealed at the top inside here. You can see it here, right? The wiper is set deep inside, giving it a clean hidden type look. And the vertical lamps are shaped diagonally like this, and the more I look at them, the more they give off a grand feeling. And both the rear camera and the built-in camera are hidden under the spoiler. So, when you look at the completeness of the design, there are no unnecessary elements. Even from the side, nothing sticks out, and from the rear, you can't see the rear wiper. So the design always looks neat and clean. That's why the Sorento is the standard vehicle when making a choice. Now the newly introduced Filante really looks strong. Looking at it like this, I can't help but be surprised by its dynamic design. When you see it from the side, this protruding feeling, wow, in a way it feels a bit quirky, but it's very intense. The car you're seeing now is the Forest Black model, but with white or brighter colored vehicles, when this part is combined with the black color, at first glance you might think, wow, what is this? I think Filante is the kind of vehicle that makes you say things like this. And just like before, you can't see the rear wiper on the Filante either. Is it there but hidden? Or is it not provided at all? If you look inside, the Filante is a coupe-style vehicle, so it doesn't have a wiper at all. Can you see my fingers when the wind blows like this? It comes in and naturally flows down. That's the design. We should also consider the practical aspects. If I had to mention a flaw, it would be this. It looks like a digital rearview mirror. You put it inside here, so if you prefer a cleaner design, this might bother you a bit. On the other hand, in the Sorento, the camera is located under the rear spoiler. It's just a difference of being on top or underneath, but surprisingly, it feels quite different. This will probably depend on your personal preference. Overall, anyone can tell that the Sorento gives off a strong SUV vibe. Looking at the Filante from this angle, wow, anyone can see it truly resembles a coupe. Personally, I think the Filante's exterior design is a bit better, but this could vary depending on your taste. Then let's compare the interiors as well. I'll check the first row, second row, and even the trunk space. First, this is what the Sorento's interior looks like. It's definitely the most familiar design, and it features an integrated curved display that's angled toward the driver. And one difference is that in domestic vehicles, this center console area is a bit wider. If two larger people are sitting in the front row, the Sorento is the vehicle where the space between the driver and passenger feels a bit more spacious. Some people may still wonder if there's actually a difference. If you measure this width, it's about 24 to 25. Personally, the parts I want to compliment are how easy the UI is to reach, including the size. It's really great. Now let's take a look at the Filante. The interior of the Filante is also the space of the pillar. The biggest difference is that a monitor is provided on the passenger side. So, there are a total of 3 displays installed on the front, like this, and since they're 12 inches, 12 inches, and 12 inches if you connect them, you could theoretically say it's 36 inches. This time, Filante differs depending on the trim. Unlike the Alpine we showed you last time, the iconic model you're looking at now has differences in these areas, giving a stone-like or ceramic-like feel. These parts are also perforated so your hands don't get sweaty. Above all, what really sets this car apart from others is this. The seat design is impressive every time I see it. Since you can't see the illuminated Alpine logo here, this vehicle is the iconic trim, and even just this is pretty nice. And I checked the center console for sound insulation. If you measure the wider area, this car also goes up to 24, 25, even 26 at most. But if you look at the narrower area below the cup holder, it's just under 20. So actually, the car where the two people feel a bit close to each other when sitting on both sides is the Filante. Shall we measure here? The width on this side is about 20, so let's check using the same standard. I'll see if this is really the reason why it felt a bit closer. If we measure using the same standard, the distance between the first row seats is definitely different. It's about 30. So when sitting in the first row, the driver and passenger feel closer together in the Filante. If you're a couple, for a spacious feel like a larger vehicle, I think the Sorento is better. And when it comes to important aspects of seats, I told you to start by checking the size of the seat cushion. The reason is that in mid-size SUVs, things like legroom have all become pretty standardized. So let's check the first row seat cushion of the Sorento. From this end to the front edge of the first row seat, the Sorento measures about 50 centimeters. As you can see, depending on whether you look from above, below, or from the side, there can be slight differences, but if I measure it using the same standard as much as possible, it comes out to about 49 or 50 centimeters. And the width of the first row at the wider part is also about 51 centimeters. Now let's check the Filante in the same way. How about the first row seat of the Filante? This is the first row seat of the Filante. Look, it's about 52 centimeters. The Filante is almost 2 centimeters longer, and the width was 51 earlier, right? The seat width is about 50 or 50.5 centimeters, so that's the difference. So the two vehicles might look similar in this aspect, but to be precise, when it comes to the length of the seat that supports under your thighs, the Filante is about 1 to 2 centimeters longer. If this part is small, it's still a meaningful difference. And on the other hand, the shoulder room is a bit more comfortable in the Sorento. So if you look at the sense of space in the first row, structurally, the Sorento feels a bit more spacious. These days, there are a lot of people interested in this car. There's a common question that comes up. So, how much is the car? Actually, the price of a new car is the same everywhere. But the problem is that the conditions and delivery times differ depending on the dealer. And after you visit the showrooms, you get a lot of phone calls, which can be really stressful. CarRep is a bit different. If you request a price comparison at CarRep, 3,500 dealers will submit their offers for you to compare. The best part is that when you talk to a dealer, your number is connected through a 050 virtual number, so the dealer can't see your real number. Even if you get a consultation and don't sign a contract, you won't get any annoying sales calls. Are you concerned about remote transactions? There's a safety guarantee service of up to 100 million won, so you can buy a new car without any worries. On top of that, after delivery, you'll also get free carab care worth 400,000 won, which covers wheels, tires, smartphones, and especially damage support. So even if you don't have any plans right now, there will definitely be a moment when you need carab in the future. Download carab now and save yourself the trouble of searching around. And there's one more difference. There's a difference in the structure of the door and the hinge. Now look at this mid-sized Sorento vehicle. This is the hinge part of the door. Doesn't it look like a folded design? This kind of structure is commonly used in mass-market cars in Korea, and the more premium car style looks like this. If you look at a car like Genesis, the hinge part here is different. The car you're looking at now is a Filante. It's totally different, right? You get what I mean? This method, which is processed as a single casting, has a structure that holds the door better. In everyday situations, there may not be much difference, but if the vehicle gets twisted, you could say this is a more stable structure. It holds both the top and bottom parts together like this. Now then, fortunately, there's a Genesis right next to us. All right, let's open it for a moment. This is the Genesis GV70 vehicle. I don't think any further explanation is needed. Even though Genesis is a domestic brand, its high-end premium vehicles like the GV70 have this sturdy structure, using the same cutting and processing methods. Now let's also compare the second row space. If you need a third row, the Sorento would be a better choice. This is how the first row space looks from the second row. But just by looking at it, you can tell that the Sorento is superior in terms of spaciousness. There's a reason for that. Just look at the window. You can see it's almost a perfect square. Because of this, the sense of openness is naturally better in the SUV. How about the second row space? I mentioned that the size of the seat cushion in the second row is important. The vehicle you're looking at now is a 6-seater. For your information, the 6-seater and the 5-seater with a bench seat are different. So let me point that out and measure the length of the seat cushion myself. The seat cushion length of the second row seat in the Sorento 6-seater is just under 50 millimeters. It's about 49.5 millimeters, which is a bit less than I expected. It's a bit on the small side, and the wider part of the second row seat measures up to 53 mm. It only comes out to about 53 mm in the Sorento with independent second row seats compared to the space where your legs rest. The width from side to side is a bit wider, and the length of the seat cushion is just under 50 millimeters, almost 50 millimeters. You can think of it that way. Now let's take a look at the sense of openness. Please compare it for yourselves. Even just because of this feeling, the authentic SUV style offers a more spacious sense of space. Alright then, let's move right on to Filante. So, how about the second row seats of Filante? Wow, but even just by looking at it, you can tell it's quite different. Let's start by measuring the size of the second row seat cushion in Filante. It already looks much bigger. Using the same standard, this should be enough, right? If you measure from one end to the other, can you see this? It's about 51.5 millimeters, is that correct? Compared to the Sorento 6-seater with independent seats, Filante is at least 2 centimeters wider, and I think the seat size itself is about the same as the Gran Koleos. So when you actually sit in it, among mid-sized cars, Filante is the most comfortable in supporting your thighs from underneath in the second row. And it's the same for the Gran Koleos as well, you can think of it that way. Also, look at the sense of openness. See how the rear part is raised like this? Because of that, compared to the Gran Koleos, the second row space in Filante feels a bit more closed in terms of openness. There's one more thing. Due to the seat structure, sports seats are blocked at the front, like a big mountain, but it's not extremely stuffy or anything like that. But since you want a detailed comparison, that's why I'm explaining it to you. After riding another coupe, getting into Filante will make you go, wow, that's the feeling. Between the X5 and X6 that I'm driving, the X6 has a bit less sense of openness, but it's designed with those aspects in mind. Especially with Filante, maybe that's why, if you look above, a glass roof comes standard on all trims. It plays a big role in making the interior feel more open. Now lastly, let's compare the trunk area as well. How much of a difference is there in the trunk area? Visually, there is definitely a noticeable difference. The Sorento feels a bit bigger, probably because the interior height is higher. On the other hand, with Filante, since it has a coupe-style design, the interior height definitely feels lower. So, let's measure it. I'll start by measuring the height. First, this is the interior height of the Sorento. When measured from the trunk side, it's measured to the inside top. It's about 78 centimeters. That's the practical interior height. This is the actual usable space. The measurement isn't taken from the very top, but from the inside, and it's roughly 77 to 78 centimeters for the Sorento. This is important when you're loading tall items or going camping. Now, let's measure the Filante. As expected, because of the coupe-style design, the interior height is definitely lower. For the Filante, the interior height is about 67 to 68 centimeters. There's almost a 9 to 10 centimeter difference in height. So if you need to store long items, let me say again, you should consider things like the usual SBL style glass. If you keep these points in mind, you can choose a vehicle that fits your lifestyle. Lastly, let's measure the floor area as well. Let's start by measuring the trunk length of the Sorento. When measuring from the back of the rear seat to the center of the trunk inside, the length comes out to about 107 centimeters. Now let's check the Filante. The vehicle itself is longer. Since the car is much longer, when you look at the center of the trunk, it's not a huge difference. But this one measures about 109 centimeters. So the Filante is about 2 centimeters deeper. Now, let's measure the width as well. Alright, lastly, let's measure the width as well. There are two standards for measuring the width. The first standard is from wheelhouse to wheelhouse. This will probably be the narrowest width in the trunk. I'll measure the width between both sides here, and for the widest part, I'll measure from this end all the way to the other end. With these two standards, the narrowest part of the Sorento's trunk measures 107 to 108 centimeters. It's almost the same as when I measured behind the second row seats. That's for the narrow part. Now, for the widest part, the Sorento measures 137 centimeters. Wow, that's impressive. That's quite a difference. The Sorento shows a dramatic contrast between its narrowest and widest points. When considering mid-size SUVs, it has a large trunk space. Especially, unlike coupe-style vehicles, the trunk height was very high. Now we're at the part you're curious about, Filante. If you look at Filante, the space between this wheelhouse and that wheelhouse is the narrowest part. And from this end to the other end where the speaker is, that space is the widest. But just by looking at it, it seems a bit narrower than the Sorento. All right, let's measure it. All right, this is the trunk area of the Filante. The narrowest part, the distance between the wheel wells, is about 100 centimeters. It's about 7 to 8 centimeters narrower. The widest part is about 133 centimeters. Compared to the Sorento you saw earlier, it's a bit narrower. So, if you need a lot of trunk space, vehicles like the Sorento or Santa Fe would be better for you. But if you don't need that much space, this should be fine. For those who don't go camping, this space is still really big. So I think it would be good for you to keep these points in mind when making your choice. So, we've compared the best-selling Sorento in the mid-size class and the newly introduced dark horse, the Filante. Seeing them side by side, the results were different from what I expected. You really need to compare carefully based on your purpose for buying, so you won't regret it. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. If this was helpful, please give it a like and subscribe and turn on notifications to get accurate new car information quickly. Thank you.
Đó.